And I feel like it's always a privilege for me to be in front of a group of women, especially like you. We have so many things that we need to do in our lives. We are packed to the gills with everything. So it's always an honor for me to be in your presence. But before we get started, I just like to take a moment just for us to just kind of honor ourselves, helping you understand how amazing you are and just centering you in this moment. Just take a moment to honor yourself, show love and compassion for yourself and any emotions or anything that you might be feeling as you showed up today, this morning. Just honoring yourself in this moment, just for a second. So today, I'm going to share with you a lot of tools from my book, Simple Tools for Managing Stress, Finding Inner Peace, and Uncovering Happiness. And I want to share some things with you that are very simple and demystify that idea of meditation. You need to carve out a whole bunch of time and fit things into your already busy schedule. Because as we're all well aware, we're leading extraordinary lives right now under unprecedented circumstances. And I bet you may even be tired of people telling you that. Every morning we wake up and it's the same thing. We wake up and it just keeps becoming the truth that we are living in these times. So I want to share my screen with you. I put together some slides for this presentation and just keeping an open mind and noticing places in you where the things that I'm talking about maybe ring a chord or ring true for you. Because my goal today would be that if you could take one thing from this talk and implement it into your life today, it will transform your life for the rest of your life. So let's share the screen. Slideshow, play from the start. Oh, I don't think I've ever done that the first time. That was terrific. So this is really about mindfulness. Mindfulness means being right here, right now with what you're doing. So you would be practicing mindfulness right now if you're listening to what I'm saying and not doing anything else. And when the mind starts to wander, bring yourself back to this moment and listening to this talk. Stress management and burnout. We can never get rid of stress. Stress is a part of everyday life, but we can learn how to manage it and learn that if we actually understand that stress can be a motivator and stress can also be a way for us to learn what we need to do the next time around. And of course, burnout. The pandemic has caused us all to burn out more than we probably would like to know. So nothing about this past year has been normal. Nothing has been understandable or even manageable at times. So I've always, when I present something, I always think that we can manage just about everything. So I want you to think of manageable in a different word because this pandemic has been manageable and we've done the best that we can. In these traumatic moments, but particularly this collective trauma that we're all still living in, it can be easy to trick ourselves into believing that somehow we should have known how to handle this so much better, or we could have done so much more, that we could have had all the answers, or that if we'd have shown up in a different way or some sort of perfect manner, things might be going better or things might be different. But in all these feelings, I want you to know that just you showing up today, any day, and just being here and breathing is enough. If you can start to understand that you are enough already as you are when you wake up. So your feelings of anxiety and overwhelm and exhaustion all are normal and natural responses to our surroundings. So think about it. For exactly one whole year, we've lived in a state of fear. You've lived in a state of fear, uncertainty, and unknown. We've had to pivot and turn our lives upside down and do all of the things that needed to be done. And so one of the biggest struggles we have in this pandemic is feeling absolutely out of control. We can't control the virus. We can't control other people. We can't control anything in the outer world. So what I want to talk to you about today are these feelings of control that we've never been able to control anything ever. It's an illusion if you think you were ever going to be able to control people, places, things, not possible. And this year has just amplified that and magnified this truth even more. So the good news is I'm here to help you see where you can control and what you can control and start taking back the control of your life that maybe you haven't had the reins ever, or even in this year for sure. And to open up to practices and open up with an awareness of what we can really control and how to start moving your life in a direction of your deepest desires. So we can't control the external world. I already said that. And we can't control the things that happen around us. And we've never been able to. But today we can start to manage our reactions to it all. So one of my favorite books is Man's Search for Meaning, and my favorite all-time author is Viktor Frankl. And he wrote this incredible book while imprisoned in a Nazi concentration camp. And in this book, he says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our happiness. So this quote encapsulates this power that I'm talking about, that space between the thoughts where we can actually have a sense of control over our mind. So I believe in why this book has touched me so much for many reasons. It's truly a testament to the power of the human mind, that Frankl was able to live, to find internal freedom while being captured in this concentration camp, where every aspect of his external world was out of his control. So mindfulness equals choice. So he was able to be in the present moment, suffering all the great atrocities of that concentration camp. But so he was able to make a choice. And so even though we can't control the external world, we can always choose how we respond to that. So think about Viktor Frankl when you're starting to feel stressed in the day, that things are just overwhelming. You have the power to be in the present moment and choose. So people ask me all the time, what is your expertise, Barb? And I always reply, I'm an expert in the mind. I've spent much of my life, over 37 years, studying the mind, the thoughts that we think that are in the mind, and how we can start to be more selective with the thoughts that we have and the thought patterns. So this is our problem. This is what happens all day long, 24/7, even while we're sleeping. All of these random thoughts, one after the other, are going on in your mind all the time. We can never stop the mind from thinking, but we can find the space in between every single thought, and we can start to understand which thoughts are real and which ones are false, which ones are helpful and which ones are harmful. Because this is your mind 24/7. So the mind can be your greatest ally or your worst enemy. And in my practice, the tools that I'm going to show you today will help you start to become aware and centered, so that you can start taking the aligned actions that are based on your needs and your innermost desires. So learning how to find this space is critical. It's everything. Learning how to take that second pause. And if you think about it for a minute, the biggest source of our suffering are these constant thoughts in the mind. So the job of the mind is to think, which is a good thing. We never want the mind to stop thinking, and it can't anyway. You can't control what thoughts pop into the mind. You can't control what thoughts are going to come in, and you can't control how long they're going to stay unless you take your power back. So the Laboratory of Neuroimaging at the University of Southern California did this study. We think over 48.6 thoughts per minute. Incredible. 95% of those thoughts are repetitive, meaning we've had them over and over and over again. 80% of those habitual repetitive thoughts are negative. So if you're ever wondering during the day, why am I so tired? This is why. If we can't learn to somehow manage the thoughts in the mind, you are always going to be at the mercy of the thoughts in the mind. This is about 70,000 thoughts a day that we think. And so it's really clear from this study that these repetitive negative thoughts lead us to feel stressed, anxious, and overwhelmed. So how do we start to lower that statistic, actually? And I believe it starts with mindfulness practices, becoming aware. We can never change anything that we're actually not aware of. And so I was first taught meditation and mindfulness when I checked myself into treatment in 1984 for bulimia when I was 28 years old. I was already started working at McDonald's when I was 14 years old. Many of you may already know the story. It's in my book. And became an owner-operator, owning my first McDonald's restaurant when I was 23 years old, and ultimately ended up owning 6, and was still miserable, suffering from bulimia for about 7 years. And I went into treatment in 1984, long before meditation and mindfulness and any of these practices were a trend. So at that time, the idea of sitting with myself in treatment for 6 weeks with my own thoughts in silence was torture. I thought, how can I do this? My mind ran rampant, and I was faced intimately with my thoughts. And so, but through this consistent practice, I started to develop a connection and a relationship and awareness that provided a positive new perspective for me to have on my life and on me. So ultimately, this practice gave me this deep sense of awareness that was and continues to be the foundation of everything that I do in my life. So we feel burned out, we feel overwhelmed, and we just feel like something's got to give. Everyone that I talk to, all of the comments on social media that Michelle and I look at, we look at everything every single day. People are like, something has to change, something has to happen. And so the first step for you to make any choice in changing anything is to be aware, as I said. And mindfulness, being in the present moment, helps you become aware of how you are spending your mental energy every single day so that you can begin to make the change. So we begin to start to notice those space between each thought when we become aware. Being aware shows us where the mind goes during the day. What are you thinking? And we can look for those small opportunities to redirect your energy to where it's useful for us, away from the negative, harmful, false thoughts. So many tell me that we don't have time for meditation or mindfulness bar practices. I don't have time to sit for 30 minutes. I hear that all the time, and I understand that completely. And I get it, and we're incredibly busy, and your calendars are already busy. So the good news is I'm excited to share with you, and I've been sharing this for several years now. I'm excited to share with you this study that was done in rebuttal to the fact that we can't find time for mindfulness. And it's called the 1% rule. There are 1,440 minutes in a day. And the study that was done was 1% of 1,440 is 14 minutes. And the study has shown that if you spend 14 minutes a day, 1% of your day, in mindfulness practices, being in the present moment and practicing mindfulness for a minute here and a minute there all throughout the day, not 14 at one sitting, this not only gives you tremendous benefit, it has the possibility of transforming the other 99% of your day. And this is not hard to do. You can't do it wrong. It's just, we have to be able to remember to stop and pause and find that space. And the beauty about this 1% rule is that you can leave these 14 minutes, as I said, throughout the day, a couple minutes before you get out of bed in the morning. When you open your eyes, close your eyes again and just whisper something like, thank you for the gift of this new day. We forget that not everyone wakes up tomorrow morning. We've been given a new day. So just offering a couple minutes of gratitude with your breath sets your foundation. Then you weave the other minutes throughout the day. I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Let me come back to the moment. Let me come back to my breath. Let me go in the bathroom at work and just breathe for a minute. Bring yourself back to the moment in that space between those negative, stressful thoughts. And then at night before you go to bed, and I'll talk about reflection a little bit later, fitting this into your day helps you find this very manageable way of handling stress, of living your life fully, actually. So as we start to put mindfulness into practice, we really start to become aware of our thoughts. So we will also start to become acutely aware of our feelings and our emotions. I know that we all have felt the gamut of feelings during this pandemic. And so for survival, we probably try to push our feelings away. I don't have time to deal with that feeling. I just push it down and hope that it'll go away. But feelings can't be pushed down, and feelings don't just go away. So today I want to give you permission to start to feel your feelings if you haven't already, allowing your emotions to actually flow through you when they arise, and not pushing them down or pushing them aside, thinking that they're magically going to go away. It is a natural and necessary part of our human experience to feel our emotions like anger, fear, loneliness, guilt, frustration, all of those things. But because we've been so stressed or so not used to this whole unknown and this uncertainty that we've been living in, we become accustomed to pushing them down. And I would actually say probably a lot of you, because many people like this, a lot of you, even before the pandemic. And so most of us aren't aware of how we are feeling moment to moment. So the good news is the word emotion comes from the Latin root emovere, to move out. And so all emotions want is to be acknowledged and to be felt. And if we allow ourselves to feel what we're feeling in the moment without judging ourselves, without writing a story about it, without holding on to them, they actually move through us. And this changed my life when I started studying all of the things about emotions. And the first thing is actually when you're naming your feelings, this is kind of a few of the feelings, but there are hundreds and hundreds of emotions that we can name for ourselves that we're not aware of. These are just a few of them. So take a second. How are you feeling in this moment? You don't have to say it out loud, but just notice and just say to yourself, I'm feeling energized or I'm feeling sad. Just to name that, and I tell you that awareness of it starts to release it. And so it's the suppression of emotions that causes the stress, that causes the buildup, that leads to them coming out sideways, like bursts of anger at someone that you're not even angry with most of the time, or road rage. And so the simple act of noting your emotions can help lighten their weight. And Dr. Dan Siegel says, we name it to tame it. We name the emotions to lighten the load. And so I think there's a great fear for us to allow ourselves to feel our feelings and to tap into our emotional energy, because we think once we do that, we will become so overwhelmed. We don't know how long that's going to last. And we're not exactly sure what would happen to us. I know that I felt that way before. When I wasn't feeling my feelings, I thought, I can't let that come out because heaven knows what might happen. So we keep them bottled up inside, hoping that they will pass, but that is not possible. So my life took on a different meaning, and I changed my whole outlook about emotions when I started studying this research project by neuroanatomist Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. You may have seen her TED Talk. At 37 years old, she suffered a massive stroke and took 8 years for her to completely recover. And in that 8-year recovery, being a neuroscientist, she studied the mind, she studied the emotions, she studied what happened to her at 37 years old. And what she discovered is this: when an emotion arises in the body, there's a 90-second chemical process that happens. For 90 seconds, you can watch the emotion arise and feel it before the chemicals actually flush out of your body. All of that takes 90 seconds. And then she goes on to say, and this is the genius of her study, if you continue after those 90 seconds to feel fear, anger, so on, you need to look at the thoughts that you are thinking that are re-stimulating this physiological response. So if we can start to witness our emotions when they arise, feel them and allow them to process without any interference with the thoughts in the mind, we can actually allow the body then to release all of the emotions and the buildup that it is feeling. If you can start to just witness your emotions when they arise and feel them and allowing them to move through your body, 90 seconds is all that it takes. And so when you feel an emotion bubbling up, just pause. This is that space. Just take a pause, that 1 minute of mindfulness. Just take a pause and name what you are feeling without judging it, without writing a story about it. And when you're under stress, it becomes very tempting to start to write a story about, to catastrophize everything, right? We feel like it's all bad: the bills, the debt, the COVID, the relationship struggles, the job security, the financial future, all the things. We lump it all together and we start writing a story about all of that because we're trying to not feel the feelings that possibly this pain and this difficult moment may last forever. And I just told you, emotions don't last forever. They come and they go. They are fleeting. They are impermanent. They are not permanent. So it is tempting to feel the emotion with the thoughts, with the struggles, with the more negativity. And I want you to remember that the body can process these emotions in 90 seconds. So become more aware of how you talk to yourself in the brain. Your brain is like a supercomputer, Jim Quick says. He's a brain coach. And your self-talk is the program that it will run. So eavesdrop on how you're talking to yourself every day. And every time you catch yourself criticizing yourself or judging yourself negatively, can you actually see if you can replace that negative thought with something positive? A negative thought and a positive thought cannot exist in the mind at the same time. So for example, if you say to yourself, if you're at work or even at home, I'm not going to be able to handle what happens next here. The mind says that to us all the time. I'm not going to be able to handle it. I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. Can you replace that thought with something like, I have everything that I need in this moment to make the choice and take the actions that I know will benefit me? Remembering that 95% of the thoughts that we have are repetitive. They happen over and over and over again for years. So we have to notice which ones are not serving any useful purpose. And they're actually draining your energy and harming your productivity. And the beauty of these practices is that they build on one another. So as we start to become more aware of what we are thinking and what we are feeling, we start to tap into the emotions. We begin to really know and understand our needs and our desires. And so I know that so many of you feel like you're being pulled in a million different directions. And we've had so much being asked of us at this time. And though it's not always easy, one of the most important practices that you can begin to incorporate into your life is advocating for your needs, communicating your desires, communicating your communicating your desires, communicating your needs to yourself, understanding them, and to others, while also knowing your limits and your boundaries. So there are so many things that this pandemic has taught us. And I believe, but one of the most poignant things that it has taught us is just how important taking care of ourselves truly is. If we aren't taking care of ourselves, then self-care is truly not being practiced. If we don't know how we feel, and if we're not able to take care of ourselves, how can we actually expect to show up in our lives in a way that we truly want to and be of service of helping others, our family, our coworkers, our friends, the world, the community that we live in? So there's this classic quote that says, I'm sure all of you probably heard it, you can't pour from an empty cup, fill your cup first. So setting boundaries and knowing your limits allows you that space to fill your cup up first. And so asking for what you need is the greatest act of self-care. And the way we do this is by having boundaries. So what are boundaries? A boundary is an action you take with yourself and another person or another person that will preserve your mental and physical well-being. Boundaries are not punishments for the other people, they are an act of self-preservation. So simply stated, boundaries are that loving act of self-care and advocacy for your needs and your desires in any given moment. So this entire pandemic has been an ultimate test in boundaries when we think about it, right? Just trying to remember maintaining the distance or wearing the mask or not doing this or not going into that situation. We're constantly trying to sort out how we manage and do all of this. So I want you to notice how you feel when you allow yourself to bend your boundaries. And I think the mask situation has been a good one. And so what happens when you allow yourself to bend the boundary on wherever you stand on that? And subsequently, I want you to notice how you feel when you enforce your boundaries, when you stand up for yourself in the most powerful, loving, kind way possible. So I believe that when we don't set boundaries with ourselves, we're actually neglecting our well-being. As much as it's important to set the boundary with others for our own well-being, we also need to set our own personal boundaries so we structure our lives in a way that does not leave us feeling burned out. Self-care includes recognizing your limits and allowing yourself to pause when you need a break. And so, for example, one personal boundary that I have always is that I never sit down and talk to anyone, or I never have a discussion with anyone or a difficult conversation with someone if I'm feeling agitated or distracted or tired or hungry or exhausted or lonely. If I'm having any of those big emotions that come up, I'll just say, I'll get back with you later. We can have this conversation later. And it's a big one for me that I always set. So there are some boundaries that you always set no matter what. Be in touch with those and try to understand what those are. Because when we set boundaries with other people, it is a way of expressing what we need from them. And this means to be very clear on what you need and in your communication with them. And so knowing that and taking the necessary steps keeps us from thinking, what are we going to do about it? What happens when this happens? How am I going to get over this? And overthinking is what leads to the burnout that I talked about before with the thoughts in the mind. So you know when you're overthinking, right? When we are overthinking what's happening to us, we are worrying. We are constantly worrying about things. And so that may or may not happen. This, or what are we going to do with this? In the hopes that we can gain insight in how to change it or how to change the other person. So think of it as like leaving a light on in your car. And that's what this slide is about. Worry is a slow drain on your energy. So leaving your light on your car overnight and then you can't start your battery in the morning. This is how we are when we worry about things all day long. It is a drain on our mental energy. And this research really blew my mind that a study was done on worry, shows that people spend somewhere between 5 and 6.5 years of their life worrying. And it goes on to say that we are wired to worry. I'm not going to stay here and say stop worrying, learn how to stop worrying, because that's what we do. But we can actually mitigate it, we can actually manage it. And it goes on to say in this study that 85% of what we actually worry about never happens. And then it goes on to say that the 15% that does happen, we handle so much better than we ever thought that we could. So learning how to manage our difficult emotions can help greatly reduce our stress. And so most of the things we worry about never come to pass. And so much of our stress is self-imposed by our overreactions, by our misconceptions, or other stories that we tell ourselves. And so William James, the great psychologist, philosopher, he said our greatest weapon against stress is the ability to choose one thought over another. So I want you to give yourself permission to care for yourself, to speak up for yourself. And in doing so, provide the space for those around you to do the same. We can only truly meet others as deeply as we've met ourselves, as deeply as we know what we want, what we desire, what we need. And your compassion must begin by being kind to yourself. And so without self-care, you're at risk of having compassion fatigue, all the fatigues, whatever that might be, work fatigue, family fatigue, friend fatigue, whatever it is. So what if you could live your life with unshakable faith in yourself? And of course, it's easy. We can live our lives. It's easy for us to live our lives when things are going well and when we're feeling good. And this pandemic is certainly not, is given us the test on that. But I want you to think of yourself like a pilot flying at night. There are times in life where we must rely on instruments. And so low visibility arises, and we know that there's land down there, but we can't see it. And a pilot starts flying on his instruments or her instruments. So she must be able to trust her instruments when she's flying that plane at night or in bad weather. And so the pandemic has been us flying in a fog for a whole year and counting on us to use our instruments. So I'm asking you to trust yourself. Trust whatever training you have done up to this point. Trust that you can handle whatever life sends your way. Think about it like, I've got this. I'm going to use my instruments. I'm going to use everything that I've known, everything that I've learned up until now. And so mindfulness, I believe, can be your instrument to help you navigate stressful situations that are happening. And start by weaving that 1 minute here and that 1 minute there of mindful breathing and checking in with yourself and how you're feeling throughout the day. So when you first start, it may not feel any different, because remember, the day we plant the seed is not the day we eat the fruit. So it takes time. Practice is key. We wouldn't eat 30 days worth of vitamins in one sitting and think I'm done for the month and I'll go take the next set of vitamins the next month. No, we take a vitamin every single day or whatever that is that we do daily. And so in my 37 years of practice, meditation, mindfulness skills like these are cumulative. They build on each other. They get stronger and stronger, and they become more of my habit, and they come to my rescue when I need them. And so I urge you not to wait until the next challenge or tragedy or stressful situation happens before you start to develop a mindfulness strategy of being with yourself in the moment, helping you deal with every single moment, finding that space. And now the last tool I want to share with you that is can be sustained daily and has transformed my life is becoming more resilient. So reflection is a tool that helps you become smarter, stronger, wiser, and gain control over how you're going to respond in life. And this study done by the Harvard Business School found that 15 minutes of reflection increases work productivity 22.8% in your life. And so when I say I also mean home productivity, life productivity. Whatever you're doing, a 22% increase happens when you actually reflect back. Reflection is such a powerful tool because it creates that intentional change. When we actually can look back, when we can slow down, when we can take a minute as we pause, leaving those minutes throughout the day, we can see the bigger picture. And it gives us the space that we need for the clarity. So I want to put this in context of sleep. When we are able to look back, and insomnia is a glamorous term for thoughts that we have, or thoughts that we forgot to have during the day, right? We are thinking all the time before we go to sleep, and actually in our sleep. And so if we can practice reflection, I practice my reflection at night. After I'm done with everything, turning off all the technology, I get into bed and I put everything else away, and I just start noticing what happened in my day, what went well, what didn't go as I had hoped. And I'm using my breath and I'm noticing what are some of the things that I can reflect on that didn't go so well, that I could possibly make a different choice tomorrow, that I could take a different action tomorrow. I'll also maybe have a piece of paper or a notebook sitting on my nightstand, and I might write down what are the things on my to-do list that I need to do tomorrow. There's a study that was done that shows that if you actually take the thoughts out of your mind, the to-do list out of your mind and put it on paper, and Michelle, my daughter Michelle, calls this a brain dump. You're giving your thoughts a home. So I'll write that to-do list down, and then I'll stick it in the drawer and go to sleep. By doing all of this, by looking at what didn't go so well, and I think about Maya Angelou's quote a lot before I'm going to bed. I think about it all day long, actually, especially if I'm having a particularly difficult day. I think about forgive myself for what I didn't know before I learned it. And so this paves the way for a clear mind, giving your thoughts a home, giving yourself a clear mind to go to sleep because all of this has been taken out of your mind, and actually a grateful heart. It really gives you that sense of, I'm really good. Life is good. Look at, I can really handle this. Because as we reflect, we realize we're so much stronger and so much more powerful and have it so much more together than we think that we do. So it paves the way for your night's sleep. And then the next morning, you pull out your to-do list and you start all over again with the fresh new day. So this reflection time, I believe this is what's happening for me. You're learning acceptance. Can't change anything at night when you're going to sleep anyway. So let's not even try anymore. You're learning acceptance of what you can and cannot control. You're learning acceptance of what you can and cannot change, and acceptance of ourselves in the present moment. It's why I think reflection at night is perfect. In the present moment, while we're in bed, accept yourself that you are enough. So the mindset that helps me move from this inner peace and calm and acceptance is resilience. And so our stress comes from wanting to be here, wanting to be there while we are here. So wanting to be doing our to-do list in bed while we're in bed sleeping. And so the faster we can move from the resisting what is happening right now into acceptance, and this is our resilience. We can actually use our willpower, use all that we have, and move into this place of calm and acceptance of what is. And so what helps me find the acceptance is another Maya Angelou quote that she says, every storm runs out of rain. We can't accept what's happening because we don't like it. We don't want it to be this way. I just don't want it to be this way. And so if you can actually get it, I talked about our emotions are coming and going and they're fleeting and they're not permanent. Nothing is permanent. Everything is changing from moment to moment. So thinking about it this way, that every storm runs out of rain. Trusting, it's helped me so much to trust the beauty, actually, of impermanence. And so we alone have the power to name who we are, how we're going to live our lives, and how we're going to narrate the story of our life. So the way we narrate our story of our lives or any particular situation can affect how resilient, how powerful you actually are. And so I know resiliency is difficult sometimes. And it's actually how well we bounce back from difficult situations. So if we think about the people that we know that are truly resilient in our lives, the ones we know and the ones that we see out there in the world, they're highly successful. They're unusually resilient most of the time. They approach life with confidence, acceptance, and trust and faith in themselves. So no matter how stuck you feel that you might be in an area of your life or this pandemic or whatever it is, know that one small step, whatever that is in that space, will move you forward. And so ask yourself today, what is that one baby step that I could take to reframe my situation, to start to see it differently, to start to see whatever is happening in life that's getting me down or that's causing me to worry. How can I see it differently? And I think about Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote when he talks about, he says, "You don't have to see the whole staircase. We don't need to know what's going to happen all the way at the end. We can't control that anyway, and we don't need to know what the outcome's going to be. We can have our intentions. We just need," he says, "just take that first step." So today I would ask you just to take that first step in practicing one of these things that I've showed you today. And so I want to end by practicing a minute of mindfulness with you, minute, maybe a minute and a half. And so that's in the form of a body scan meditation. So getting comfortable wherever you're seated right now in your chair, maybe shrugging your shoulders or moving your body a little bit. We've been sitting here for about maybe 35 minutes. Just getting comfortable. Feeling your body and the weight of your body in the chair. Feeling your back up against the chair. Feeling your sits bones grounded into the chair. Settling in. Allowing your body to relax by bringing your attention into your body. Bringing your attention to the fact that you are breathing. Taking a deep breath in through the nose, feeling your chest rise on the inhale. And as you exhale, feeling your chest fall right back into your body very gently on the exhale. Feeling your chest, bringing your attention into your body. You're developing the awareness that you are breathing in this present moment. Closing your eyes if that feels comfortable for you, or lowering your gaze to the floor to minimize any distractions. Noticing what it feels like to have your feet touching the floor. Slowly bringing your attention into your body. Noticing that you are breathing in this moment. The miracle of your breath in this moment. Research by Dr. Herbert Benson in the 70s discovered that deep breathing activates the body's relaxation response. Breathing deeply, having your attention on your breath, brings your nervous system back into balance. Placing your hands on your belly. Notice if they're tense, if your belly's tense or tight. Simply allow it to soften into your hands. Taking a deep breath in through the nose, allowing your belly to press into your hands on the inhalation. And then as you exhale, the belly comes back into the body. Feeling how the belly moves in and out with every inhale and with every exhale. Notice any emotions or any sensations that might be arising for you. Simply notice. Maybe name the emotion that you're feeling in this moment. What does it feel like to be you in this moment today? Feeling the beauty and the greatness that is you in this chair, in this moment. Now taking 3 breaths at your own pace, in through the nose, exhaling out through the nose. Not trying to control your breath in any way, just allowing your breath to breathe you. Taking one more deep inhale in through the nose, deep as you can, holding it at the top just for a second. And then as you exhale, name one thing that you are grateful for in this moment. It could be that you are here. And you can open your eyes. So remembering that you can practice deep breathing anywhere, anytime. So deep breathing helps us find that homeostasis after stressful situations, brings you back into balance. Why? Because you're connecting your mind and your body and your energy in that 1 minute. So the great thing about this tool is you don't need to go anywhere to buy it. You always have your breath with you all the time. Remembering that your breath is your life force, when you're aware of your breathing in the present moment, this is mindfulness. This is your power. This is what you can control. And so I want to leave you with this study with two things, this study by Harvard psychologist Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert. I share this almost every talk that I give because it really blew my mind. It makes me so aware of why we're unhappy most of the time, why happiness is so elusive. So this study that they found, like 47% of the time, people in their waking hours are thinking about something other than what they are doing in the present moment. So in other words, they're not being mindful. If we are spending almost 50% of our time thinking about something other than what we are doing, we're not being mindful. And so they go on to say that the conclusion of this study, when you are not mindful and thinking about something else other than what you are doing, that a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. And so Killingsworth goes on to say in this study how often our mind leaves the present moment, and where it tends to go is a better predictor of our happiness than the activities in which we are engaged in. So if you think about that, or just try to remember that, it's profound. That we could be in the most engaging moment of our lives, whatever that is, at our wedding, skiing on the Alps, whatever it is, my daughter's graduation. And if we aren't fully present, we are not going to be absorbing the happiness that we might be looking for and that we actually want to feel, and we can only feel it in the moment. So I want to end all of this by saying thank you for being here today. Thank you for your presence, and remind you that you're meant to be here. You are meant to be doing all of the things that you are doing, and that your life matters. And that there will be moments, all of this that I've taught you today, there will still always be moments in your life that feel overwhelming. We cannot escape that. Life is difficult. But there will be moments that you will be able to notice that I can handle this. And there will be moments where your hindsight might be 20/20. And so during all of these moments, remember to hold yourself in compassion. Just as you have shown patience for the difficult people in your life, maybe this whole year for sure, but all of the time, be sure to please allow and offer yourself the same grace, the same compassion, the same forgiveness as you walk your particular path. And so what I do know for sure in all of my years of practice, that how close you can become to your own humanity, how deeply you can be connected to your own friendship, your own relationship with yourself by taking extraordinary care of yourself. You will be able to be fully present for all of the things that you want to do in your life, for the people, for your family, for your coworkers, for your colleagues. And you will be able to use your gifts of compassion and your expertise and your love. You'll be able to use that to ease the suffering of the people around you that matter most to you in your lives. And I believe that you're easing the suffering of others by easing your own suffering first will ease the suffering of all of humanity. So my last message of mindfulness is this. I think I've said that a couple of times today. My last message is very, very simple. And I learned it on retreat when I was with a meditation master. He's a Zen Buddhist teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh. In 1994, I went on a week-long silent meditation retreat with him. And we went on 3 walking meditations a day, morning, noon, and night. And his only instructions for us every single day, every day, be where your feet are. Be where your feet are. And so I've never forgotten this. Whenever I feel stressed, chaotic, or times are just confusing, if nothing else, confusing, I always come back to the moment. I'll say, be where your feet are, Barb. Where are your feet right now? We're never separated from our feet. So it's another thing that you can have in your back pocket that is always with you. Remembering that mindfulness equals choice. And so the only moment that you can choose is right now. And being where your feet are allows you to be fully in every single moment. And so I'll leave you with Viktor Frankl's quote, another unbelievable quote from this extraordinary man. He says, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And so my prayer or my offering for you today is that you continue to feel safe and protected, that you be happy and that you be healthy, that you be strong and that you be peaceful and powerful in the things that you can and can't control. And that may you live with some feeling of ease and well-being, knowing and having faith in yourself completely. And may you always know how deeply loved you are and how valued you are always. So thank you again for being here today. I'm very happy to take any questions or any insights or any thoughts, concerns or comments. I have a favorite teacher. He always says at the end of every talk, any concerns, any comments, anything not clear? And you can always email Michelle and I at any time. So anything. You can put it in the chat or you can turn your mics back on.
Oh, my mic's back on. I remember a while at the beginning, you said, how are we feeling with the emojis? And I'm like, I feel calm.
Nice.
My youngest one finally went back to school after spring break. So the house is now quiet.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Except for the dog. So my house is quiet. For the first time in like a year, I can see the end of the road or the new road that's coming up. My family has all been vaccinated and they're back in school. It just feels like a weight were lifted off my shoulders, and my dog feels good too.
I have a dog here too, and she's kind of taken a little notice, but she just now laid back down. So it must not be she must not be too worried about hearing the dog barking. I hope I leave the best for last, being where your feet are, because I know some of this stuff can feel overwhelming, or how do I do that? When life comes at us unexpectedly, especially like this pandemic, it becomes overwhelming. And that's why it's so important to start practicing at least one of these, or start practicing some form of mindfulness when we're not stressed, when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, or when things aren't so chaotic. Because having this practice, it didn't mean that I wasn't sad. It didn't mean I wasn't overwhelmed. It didn't mean I wasn't stressed. It didn't mean any of those things. I have all the same emotions you all have. I have all the same things happening, all the overwhelm, all the crying, can I take one more step forward? I'd wake up, especially mid-pandemic, I would wake up and I'd say, can I do this again for another day? And having a practice, the voice in my head said, of course you can, you got this. And so it's like having your own cheerleader or your own best friend or your own person inside of you, because we have two people inside of us. I mean, after meditating for 37 years, you start to realize there's a voice in the head that's talking and there's a voice in the heart that's talking. And they talk all the time at the same time, and we rarely hear the one in the heart, because to hear the one in the heart, we have to be quiet. We have to be a little bit still. We have to take that pause between the thoughts that Viktor Frankl's talking about. We have to be able to stop listening to the thoughts in the mind and listen to the voice in the heart, or the voice inside the body.
So Barb, one lady, Jude has asked if you could please repeat the Viktor Frankl quote.
Okay. The first one I'm assuming she's probably talking about.
She did not say, but I would.
Okay. Probably the first one. Yeah. Between, I know it by heart, but let me just.
Yes, she did say yes, the first one.
Yeah. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. It's for some reason I'm tongue-tied a little bit today. But it's powerful. It's everything between stimulus, what happens in the outside world, and our response. So if you think about those thoughts in the mind the slide of the mind that I showed you. If you think about whatever's stimulating you in the outside world, and before we respond at all, before we react, is what we usually are doing, we want to start to learn to take an action. An action means that we stop and we pause and we actually choose. So reaction means it's a habitual, this is what I do, this is what I do, this is what I do. My mind's just telling me to jump right in. So Viktor Frankl is telling us if we can actually find that space before we actually react, if we can find that space, that's where our power is. And that's what I started this whole talk with. That's our only power. Our only power is choosing how we're going to respond. Period. We have no power over anything else, nothing. So let's say you've got a goal or a desire that you want to have in life and it's not going so well. Your power lies not in trying to control whatever's happening outside that's not going so well. It lies in you choosing what action do I need to take next. And so between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response, whatever our action is, lies our growth and our freedom. Because when you actually take an action, and you think about this in your life, I've thought about this so much. That's why I'm a mind expert. When I think of the times that I've actually taken an action and not reacted because of some conditioned behavior from wherever, my childhood, from whatever, when I actually take an action, I feel good about myself. I feel great. I feel like, wow, I chose that and I took an action. And I think that's what Viktor Frankl is trying to say. In that action, in that response, lies our growth. And what growth happens? The growth that, wow, I can do this. I've got this. Look at what I just did. I am powerful. And so that in all of that response lies our growth. And then for him to write a quote about finding freedom in a Nazi concentration camp has been one of the greatest inspirations of my life after reading that book. So to find freedom, and you have freedom when you can actually be free of the conditioned, negative, harmful, false thoughts in the mind. And that's what he's talking about. He sat in that camp, just him and his mind. And then the other one at the end, when you can't change a situation, which we can't, you have to change yourself. Because it's our action, our choice that will change the situation. We can't change other people, we can't change other situations, but we can change our response. So they both dovetail together, both of his quotes. Anybody else? Anything else?
I would have a lot of very positive comments, and they're glad. Eliza said she was grateful for mentioning that it only takes 14 minutes a day, or 1 minute at a time.
Yeah. Well, that study that came out, we can see that, and I don't want to underestimate the power of being able to sit with yourself, in quiet for, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. All of those, I've studied all of those teachers and practice, and I actually practice that myself. But I think the key to what that study did, and the key to when I look at my life over 37 years, the key to my practice and the key to my having the power that I have over the things that I can't control, doing what I need to do and not worrying about the things that I can't control, has been me being able to find that space and weaving a minute here and a minute there all day long, knowing that I can begin again. You don't have to push through the stress. You don't have to say to yourself, oh my God, I can't wait till the end of the day. You can actually stop for a minute, go in the bathroom or go somewhere and just breathe for 1 minute. feeling your body, feeling that body scan meditation, feeling your body wherever you're sitting, wherever you're standing, feeling your feet grounded into the floor, being where your feet are, noticing your breath, noticing your breathing. 1 minute, it changes everything. And I think Herbert Benson, when he did that, I mean, he's an extraordinary doctor. When he wrote the relaxation response with the breath, if we could just remember that, it is powerful. So we can use that minute here, minute there to actually transform the other 99% of the day. And we all can do that. It just takes discipline, and it takes the will. Michelle and I talk about this all the time. She said, Mom, really what you're saying is you have to want it bad enough. Because you're telling me it works. You know, we say it works. I'm 37 years. The practice works. Millions and millions and millions of people out there practicing mindfulness and meditation. It all works. You just have to want whatever I'm talking about today bad enough in order to try it. And the Dalai Lama, when I was on a retreat with him, he said, don't trust me. Don't believe me. Don't believe anything that I've said. I was on a week-long retreat at the end. Don't believe me. This is an experiential path. You have to feel it and experience it for yourself. And the minute you do, you will not be able to give it up. You will understand deeply the power of your own breath and the power of being where your feet are. So, it's 12 o'clock. Perfect timing.
Yeah, we just had a comment from Kimberly, and she said that she and her kids have been doing guided meditations at breakfast and before bedtime as well. So it's
fantastic. That's what I did with Michelle. You know, I started practicing before Michelle was even born. She's 35. So 2 years I was into this. And that's what I did when she was old enough. We would sit at the breakfast table before she went to school. I'd say she was probably in grade school. And we would practice reading some inspirational quote or some inspirational words or messages for her to start the day. Both of us would start the day reading this message. And so it was a minute of mindfulness, a minute of beauty. I'll leave you with one of my favorite poets, John O'Donohue, Irish poet. He passed away several years ago. He says, always keep something beautiful in your mind. And so I always translated that when you wake up in the morning, what's the being in the present moment, that gratitude of even being alive today? What's the one thing that you can keep in your mind? And so using your breath, coming back to that moment of, I'm alive, all is well, or seeing that beautiful flower, coming back to the flower that you see in the morning, or coming back to something in nature in the morning. And so having those inspirational words, doing that at breakfast and at night are beautiful bookends to begin and end the day, especially with our children. So thank you for that. And thank you for this day.
Kimberly also commented that she starts her work meetings with a mindful minute, thanks to you and Michelle.
Oh, fantastic. That's so beautiful. Yeah, keep that in mind, a mindful minute. It just takes a minute. I love that, Kimberly. Thank you for sharing that. So I hope you all have a fabulous rest of the day, if that's everything.
Any other questions or anything before everybody heads out?
Yeah, right. Anything.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Barb, for taking the time out of your day to do this for us. We really appreciate it.
I'm very honored, and I'm so happy to be with all of you today, and enjoy the rest of the day.
All right, thank you. Until next time.
Yes, until next time. Thank you.
Thank you.